You are listening to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls, a podcast where three women discuss horror movies from the silent era through the 1970s. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Anchor. Timely, topical, terrifying. Well, welcome back. We are inadvertently doing apparently a vampire theme now that we're past our Poe theme because, well, it's Women's History Month now. And for Women's History Month, we were looking for something in the horror genre that predated 1980 that was primarily driven by a woman. So we were looking for things written by a woman, directed by a woman. A little hard pre-1980. I mean, we've got Deborah Hill who did the writing, a lot of the writing for Halloween, but we've already done Halloween. So we looked, and we found a vampire movie, The Velvet Vampire to be more specific. And was directed by a woman, Stephanie Rothman, who was mentored by Roger Corman. And she also co-wrote it. And Stephanie Rothman's fabulous. There's a lot going on there with her. And she did a lot of exploitation movies in the late 60s, early 70s. She wasn't happy about it, but that's the work she can get as a female director. So she took it. And I think she was the first woman who got an award from the Directors Guild.
I think so.
So there's that. And when when you watch this movie, the direction is not the problem. Let's put it there.
No, the
But
direction is lovely. Visuals, great.
give you the synopsis. So the Velvet Vampire, we have Lee and his wife Susan accept the invitation of mysterious Diane to visit her secluded desert estate. Tensions arise when the couple are unaware that Diane is a vampire and realize that she is after them. So 70s, very
Definitely
70s.
70s.
Oh, that's for sure.
Visually stunning.
I liked the wardrobe.
Oh, the
They
wardrobe
did
was
a
wonderful.
really
That
good
silver
job on
dress.
that.
That silver dress was fucking awful.
Yeah.
But
Well,
other than that,
everybody has hits and misses.
I would wear that
But
silver dress. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'd look like Mama Cass, but I would wear that silver dress.
actually, Betsy, you could have probably pulled that off because it's cut in a nice way for you because you got that nice, you're tall and you got the nice chest and it would go and just drape down and it would probably work for you. It did not work on Celestial now.
It was not particularly attractive, but it was very shiny.
It's
So
just really shiny. Which Celeste Yarnell, another interesting woman, she a very prolific actress. All the way up into the 2000s. I think she had like random
Yep.
things that she popped into. I think she died in 2018.
Yes,
Um,
that's correct.
did not
Relatively
want to
recently.
do a film where she had to be nude. We turned down other roles prior to this because of that. Did this one because she was just getting through a divorce and needed the money. So she did not want to do that. Did it anyway. They did, and I think this is probably attributed to Stephanie Rothman. They closed the set for all the nude and all the sex scenes.
Oh,
So it
yeah,
was a closed set, but predominantly males were running the cameras and doing the job. So she still was not comfortable in who could play. But yeah. And I don't know, like I don't know how you could get any work as an actress if you were remotely attractive in late 60s, 70s, and not have to be forced in some level to show something. Because it just
once
seems like
we
that's all there was.
yeah, once you hit the 70s exploitation films and a lot of the horror genres and what it seemed to be, oh, look, more boobies. More boobies. I'm not, I mean, to a degree, there's nothing wrong with boobies, but when it seems to be for no other reason than showing them.
Which
Is
is a
it
lot
really
what you get
integral?
at that time. And the
Yes.
80s too. That was another one
Yeah.
where they were just like, can we put
I
a
think I,
shower seat? Let's put a shower seat.
can we have this woman open her shirt for no reason?
oh my God, the shower scene thing is so real.
It's just a shower. No, is there a reason like why she could just be walking and her shirt will just fall open? Because that happens, right? Which I mean, to be fair, it can happen if we're talking about a button-down shirt and a big busted woman,
Oh,
um,
Jesus. Yeah.
but generally speaking, it doesn't.
Correct. Yeah, generally, no.
But in the movies, if there's a
Yes.
way they can make a titty pop out, a titty will pop out. Now I'd have to say the 70s, I would think it had to be a lot harder for them to come up with ways for the titty to pop out because I made this comment to you guys. Did all women
They were very small. They were
they're they
Hmm.
starved themselves. So they had no body fat. So they had these like interesting boobs that they were very tiny and they kind of were like flat and then all of a sudden nipple pop out kind of thing. That's what it was.
When did boob jobs become a thing?
late
I
70s, early
around
80s.
Okay, all
they
right.
weren't as prolific until like you hit
Yeah,
like the 80s.
yeah. Because that's what I'm thinking of is that we're
They
seeing
just
more
weren't
real
buying
ones
them yet.
versus artificial ones.
Well, I
Yeah,
also do think it's something to be said for the fact that literally you're looking at the Twiggy era where these women were pretty much
well
They
that
were
yeah
emasculated.
that
very thin.
yeah
So
that
without body
does have
fat,
an
you
effect.
don't, yeah,
I mean,
boobs don't really.
especially the woman who played Susan was very thin, like worryingly thin. There were a couple times that she turned sideways, and I was like, "Where'd she go?" Okay, she's there.
Yes,
It's fine.
legit.
Shelley
Which
Ritter
Sherry,
wasn't it?
Sherry
Sherry.
Miles.
Oh yeah yeah. Okay, I was thinking something else. Um, yeah, I that character was
Sherry Miles
annoying as
slash Sherry
piss.
DeBoer, that she was the same person. I think
Yeah,
the married name or a different stage name later, but in the movie, I think it's Sherry Miles is
yeah,
it.
yeah. Honestly, the married couple was irritating all around.
I thought they were so creepy. Oh my God, do they not look like brother and sister? Was it
yes,
just me?
Yeah, yes, they
and
do.
I didn't
And
until they said the
apparently,
words.
yeah, apparently, the actress who played Susan was also very obnoxious to work with. Because they said they attributed it her maybe to insecurity and youth, because I think she was younger than the other ones, but she was apparently difficult to work with.
Now, I did read she had a drama coach on the set with her at all times,
Hmm.
which I kind of admire because, like, she's a very pretty girl and she probably could have got away with getting these kind of roles without even trying to act. And
Oh
you could
yeah,
see you put effort into it. I mean, did it come across great anyway? No, but she was trying, in my opinion. And yeah, we can say
I
Michael
just.
Blodgett too, who was also pretty prolific in the like 60s and 70s.
Mhm.
He made it up in I think to the late 90s too, before he died. I think he died in the early 2000s. But not super great at the acting in this too. It just not horrible, just not very good. I would say that Celeste Yarnell, she played Diane. I thought she did pretty good.
Yeah,
Yes, I loved her performance. I
but
don't really have anything too much to say about it, but the husband and wife, yeah, and part of it is maybe just the way they were written.
did the whole movie have the feel of that couple in a bar who's looking for a bisexual woman to come back and have a threesome with them?
Yes, 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 it did. The
But
entirety of
he
it.
is obviously more into it than she is.
Yeah,
Correct.
so that
I
was
think
the
so.
thing. Like you get this swinger vibe off them in the beginning. With because they're doing this weird role playing thing in the art gallery, right? Where like they're
Yeah.
pretending to be strangers and he is
Yeah.
using the most horrific
Rev, oh, awful,
on
awful
his wife.
pickup lines. It's horrible.
And cringy, and you're like, man, this is 1970s, and men will still try to use these lines on you today. And then,
Yes, and it's just as bad now as it was then.
so cringy. And then Diana the vampire, as soon as they come over, she knows they're role playing, which is funny as hell because she's like calls out that he's the husband right away. And at first, everybody's fine until the wife gets a little jealous. So this is like polyamory already gone wrong. So they might have been into it, but you know, Sherry's character there, Susan, she's already put off by the amount of eye attention that the husband's already putting off to the vampire, right?
I don't think you could
So,
have ogled her
and
any harder.
yeah, it's true. So, but still, it's weird. So, okay, so back to like the original point. What Stephanie was doing with the film was gorgeous. Like just the visuals, the innovation she
Mm,
used. I mean, that whole the nightmare dream sequence coming out of the mirror with the red dress flowing everywhere and
I
the
loved
sand in
that
the
shot.
desert.
Yeah, it was done very well.
So gorgeous. The scene where she's laying with her dead husband in the grave shouldn't be pretty. It is. Like
It
there's a
was.
lot of really great innovation, really great technique. You can kind of definitely see Roger Corman's influence with the colors and the contrast and stuff. But the story fails, and I don't know if it's because her concept is fighting with the two male concept because I mean it is supposed to be an exploitation film, so I'm pretty sure that she was being really pushed to let's just make this see how lesbian we can make the vampire. Let's get this in there. Let's get the sex in there. And I think she was trying to tell a story about a lonely female vampire and how she was going through her life. Is
That's the storyline that felt
and it
ignored to me.
and it didn't work because like you're getting this story for this lonely vampire, but then they're trying to throw in this seductress vampires, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not the worst movie we've ever seen. It's just
Oh
dull.
no,
Payoff is
we've seen
dull.
some stinkers, but
It just felt like it was at odds with itself in the story that it wanted to tell, and then the way that it was being told. Because it's obvious that she had an idea, and I think it would have been maybe more compelling if he had been really interested in her, and she had obviously been more interested in the wife. And it was the two of them striking like a friendship and him being himself around this that might have been more interesting for us to watch. But also, it would have been way too lesbian for the time period, I think, probably. But also, it would have been too female centric and they couldn't have it. Men wouldn't watch it.
I think you're right on that case. Um, and in a way, too, there's something I read about the distribution of the film that kind of pairs with that is that nobody seemed to know how to market the film, how to distribute, because they would have it played as part of like double feature drive-through films. Art
Mhm.
houses were showing it, which I can definitely see that.
It
So
made
That
I
more
makes
sense
think,
sense.
for an art house than it did for
yeah,
an exploitation drive-in for sure.
because there really wasn't much of a horror element to it. There
No.
was a little bit of death and this supposed vampire, but other than that,
It also,
I
like,
think
there were strange moments. Like, she never killed someone using vampirism. She killed one guy with a knife. She bit him, but she stabbed him. And I'm pretty sure it was the stabbing that killed him more than her biting him for a second. And then
yeah,
the other guy, the one guy
Pitchfork.
died pitchforking. Um, so like other than her own like manservant, no one died by her just being a vampire.
Okay, I have a question for you ladies. Did you think that maybe the hunger pulled from this and made the movie, like when you think about the hunger and where it went, I almost think that somebody watched this and went, you know what? We could do this,
I
but we still got to
wonder.
focus on a dude more.
hmm,
You know, because
Wonder.
when I think about it, I haven't watched The Hunger in years, but like, the whole David
it's
Bowie
been
thing and
forever.
yeah. But like you have the lead is the female vampire. She's trying to make a companion. Her companions keep suddenly aging up and dying. And then, but the whole story, she gets a woman that falls in love with her, and you know what I mean? So I just wonder about that because you can see where this was meant to be something more like that. So I just wonder, but I don't know what came out first. I feel like this did come out before The Hunger, but I might be
It
wrong
did. It
because The
did.
Hunger was the
I
80s,
thought,
wasn't it?
yes, yeah, yeah. Hunger was the '80s. I remember watching it in college. I think it was somebody that brought it up. And I can see where there might be some cross-pollination
Yeah.
between the two because they're both sort of a very dream feel to it.
Yeah.
1983.
Okay.
Mm,
It'd
I'm
be
seeing if
interesting
maybe
to
there's
find
any
out.
mention of it in the trivia. So give me a
yeah.
minute. I'm just
No problem. Hopefully that'll
Betsy's our girl in a room.
Yep. But there was a lot of disconnects and weird jumps, and I think that goes back to again where you have conflicting ideas about where this story is supposed to go. So, first the husband Lee is super gung ho about going to the desert, and the wife's just like, "All right, we'll go, we'll go." And then the wife doesn't sort of get into it until after Diana sucks on her thigh to remove the rattlesnake venom. And then she's look, but you could kind of see, okay, maybe she just enjoyed the thigh sucking, and so then now she's into Diane. I don't know,
Who knows?
but I don't
it's
know
the
how
best she's
fucking
gotten in a minute.
probably because she looked like she was in pain when he was eating her out. Did you catch that scene? She's just laying there like,
Well, she looked very unenthused
I'm
Uh,
like, he's nibbling on her clitoris. You could tell because that's that pain look you get when you're like, no, no, honey, that is
you're
not
right
what you
now.
do. No, bitch, no.
No.
Not, no teeth on the clit, no. I
Don't
mean,
do
that's
it.
what her face made me think. I'm like,
It's not. It's not a baseball. Don't hit it with a bat.
um, but but the whole rattlesnake scene I thought was hilarious. I mean, one, I love the filming of it. Like you get to see why they call them sidewinders and how it's like moving towards her and stuff.
Oh
But the
yeah,
other
from
thing
a
was like
reptile nerd aspect, that was pretty cool.
super cool. It crawls on her though. I'm like, how do you not wake up immediately? Because not positive, but I'm pretty sure a rattlesnake is a little bit like a hognose where it feels very segmented when it moves on you, as
I think
opposed
they
to
have more of a
constrictor that's a lot
rough.
more strong.
Yeah, I think their scales are a little bit more rough to get more purchase on the sand.
So I'm
Um,
like, I think you should have felt that right away.
Not to mention they're very shy creatures, so
Yeah, like
it's
there was
not
the
gonna
other thing. I was like, there's no
wander.
reason that rattlesnake would have crawled up on her to begin with,
Yeah,
unless he thought she was shade or something fucked up like that. Makes no sense.
yeah. So it's a definite plot device there to
But yeah.
force the contact between her and Diana.
But can we talk about how cringy Lee is in general, though?
Oh, yeah. He just rubbed me the wrong way the whole time.
I'm just that creepy, icky, and then the whole okay. So he's after Diane from the start. Diane's into it
Oh
too. He
yeah.
can't actually pretend like otherwise. They have this weird flirt thing, avoid, dealing with a dune buggy, and and then like eventually, finally, they try to get together a couple times. Weird things interrupt it, and then finally, you know, Susan pretends to be asleep. Lee gets up in the middle of the night, walks in on Diane eating a raw chicken. Gross as fuck.
Ugh.
Calls her out on it. He's clearly grossed out. She's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, we're animals though. You want to fuck? And he's like, yes, let's do this.
One thought I had when I was watching it, even from the earlier scenes in the gallery, was this guy is 1 second away from saying "nice shoes." Want to fuck?
Which Diane does to him instead.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so they have their sex scene, which, again, I think you could tell Stephanie Rothman was not super into like filming these. And I think she knew that there was a comfort level missing from her actors. And I think she made them as brief and as not and as
Limited
classy
in
as she could.
scope. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because, they don't feel rushed, but they don't feel, how normally when you see somebody's into filming a sex scene, they're like, get the camera all in there and stuff. You don't really get that vibe. You just kind of get there you go, it's done. Let's get the camera out there.
The
Yeah,
problem with it,
they said they had to balance in between something more for an art what you could push for an R rating versus staying away from too much and it turning into soft porn.
Yeah,
the problem is though that it also made it so that none of the love scenes seemed passionate.
exactly. They seem very
It was like,
Everybody seemed bored with it.
this is
well,
what a
they
sex
weren't
scene
into
looks
it.
like.
I mean, and it goes back to like none of the actresses were comfortable, and I want to be clear, it doesn't say anywhere they felt like they were being
Exploited.
right. They just none of them wanted to do it. They had to do it for the film. They made their choice. They had a closed set, but they had plenty of reasons why they felt uncomfortable without it necessarily having to do with like inappropriate touching as far as you can, you know what I mean? But and I think that all reads through that nobody really felt good doing those scenes. So it felt mechanical and yeah.
I mean, even like the touching, really, we didn't see a lot of it. Like, he was kind of petting her leg, kinda. In the scene where we were talking about where he's going down on his wife, like we see him slide down, but he's not like sliding down her body or anything. Um, it seemed like there was minimal touching for a sex scene, like, like which yay, because we don't want them to feel uncomfortable to the point if they felt violated or anything like that. But also, it really did take some of the sexiness out of the sex scenes.
Yeah.
And
It
I
kind of
think that was a
just fade to
choice.
black. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Right. I think that was a choice because usually vampire films are pretty sexy. Like that's kind of we've talked about this. Like they are usually like kind of seductive and whatever. And this didn't have that feeling at all. If this was a vampire I was presented with, I would think vampires were boring as hell. Um,
Well, I mean, I did like her interest in the desert and bloodstones. That was fascinating, but
that was cool. Like as a person, she was interesting. As a vampire, she was
it's
boring.
not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if I
there
was,
wasn't much of a mystic feel to the
No.
character, and there should be if it's an otherworldly creature.
Yeah, it was
even the
very.
like, she lived in the desert and she went out during the day. Um, and later they made a thing about like stripping her of her clothing in the sunlight. But like it's a hat. It's not magic. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they were also surrounding her by crosses too, but yeah. Still, yes, I agree.
I mean, if I'm surrounded by a sudden mob of strangers shoving
I'm
crosses at
gonna.
me, I'm gonna be a little worried too.
I was gonna say, it would also freak me out. And
Yeah,
I am
Yeah.
in
yeah.
fact not a vampire that we know of. So
No. But it's more to the point with Rebecca because not only is she not a vampire, she's also a Christian. So just to the point that a Christian would also be freaked out by a whole bunch of people swarming them with crosses should make you understand that yes, that in general would make you
I'm a
uncomfortable
nice,
regardless.
I'm a nice reserved Lutheran. Displays like that bother us.
I mean, you and I, Betsy, were witches, so of course we're going to be disturbed if you come at us with crosses, not being vampires, but still.
Oh,
That's what makes it fun.
we should
Oh,
just
okay,
say it.
sorry.
Any normal person, it would disturb.
yes,
Yes. Being sworn, but yeah, no.
yeah.
But oh, sorry. So after, well, I kind of lost my track because I just still think it was so funny with the whole raw chicken let's fuck and then they get done fucking. But this is the thing that makes the whole character Lee even creepier. So there you have all this stuff. He has the sex, and then he's like, "Hey, honey, you want to go now? We can go now. We
I
hit
got
it.
mine. I'm done. Let's go. We can leave. Yeah, and yeah, that circles back to what Betsy brought up, is that they were giving like the swinger vibe where they're a couple looking for their unicorn, and that's pretty guy reaction there. So yeah,
And and I also think that it is a very guy reaction. Again, going back to that a very, very specific analogy, he started to think that Diane was more interested in Susan than him. And as soon as that happened, he wanted to shut this down.
well, and
And
I'll
Susan
comment.
was interested in her.
Yeah, and guys don't realize when it comes to a threesome with two women and the guy's often superfluous. There's nothing he really needs to be there for, and that sort of discombobulates that. And so yeah,
I
this
mean,
guy, he got his, and he's like, "All right, we're done. Let's go."
yeah, there's a lot of psychology we can go into about threesomes and men, and yeah,
Oh
how they
yeah,
feel when they finally see that their partner's having an orgasm and what it really looks like.
might be outside of the scope of this episode.
Or it might be the actual point of the episode,
I mean,
depending on
Entirely,
how
that's
you look at it.
true.
it's just so there could have been something here. But obviously, if this is the conversation we're having, whatever they were trying for failed. Because this,
Yes,
I don't think, was what we were supposed to get from it. Is
I
that
think they would have had
opening
to go
your
one way or the other.
yeah, opening your relationship and adding a third person usually doesn't solve relationship issues.
No, no, it does not.
Ever.
If anything, it's going to exacerbate what the problems that were already there.
Even if she's a vampire.
The vampire will not save your relationship, so don't try it. Yeah, I think the movie tried to be maybe too many different things,
Well,
and it
that,
needed to
yeah,
pick a singular direction to go to. And I mean, even the one violent scene with the auto mechanic running onto the pitchfork, that wasn't even in the original shoot. Corman was like, "Here, add this in," because he wanted more horror elements, and it was like the movie didn't
yeah.
know what it wanted to be.
Well, Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I think it's because you had something that Stephanie wanted it to be, and then her two male co-writers and the producer, the people giving them money wanted it to be. And
Yeah.
I think she tried to put in as much. I'm obviously projecting, but it just feels like she was trying to put as much as she could into something that gave you an independent, strong female vampire lead character and even a strong independent final girl type, even though she doesn't quite end up being a final girl in the end. And I think you had this other push that this is an exploitation film, you need to have sex, you need to have horror, and it didn't work because you had this fight, and the fight just made it end up being like, what? It's kind of boring.
It
I
was
don't know.
similar when I was having a discussion with an acquaintance on the series, The Night Gallery, that Sterling
Sure.
produced. And in the third season, they were fighting a lot with the network, and you can kind of see it in the quality of the episodes. So anytime I think the artistic people are having to fight with the money behind it, you're gonna suffer in quality one way or another.
Yeah. Oh, but there was a cute little touch in there. So the beginning of the movie, you're at the Stoker Art Gallery, well, the Stoker Night Gallery,
Yep.
even. So you get like an ode to Bram Stoker in there. You get like, Night Gallery reference in there. Where it is different, you have Susan survive longer than obviously Lee. Lee ends up getting killed, and Susan makes a run for it. And then ends up ultimately she defeats Diane. She quickly realizes that the wolf's bane to the vampire crosses the sun, right? And then ends up running straight into the arms of another vampire because she wasn't smart enough to figure that out.
I did like that little twist at the end. That
That
was
was funny.
nice. And it felt like, I don't know, justice is not the right word, but
It just you're right. It's not the right word, but it's not the wrong word.
yeah, it's because there's nothing she's, I mean,
You don't
other
get
than
very invested in Lee and Susan surviving. Let's just put it this way. You
no.
actually feel a little
Yeah,
worse for the
yeah,
fact that
that's
Diana
true.
died than you do for the.
Yeah, yeah, I actually regret her loss more than any of the others because she was the more interesting.
Mhm. So she was sloppy, and I think that bothered me a lot. It was a
Yes.
very sloppy vampire. I mean, you're in the middle of the desert. You know your food source is limited if you're using humans, but you also should know that you're going to draw attention if you're eating the only humans in the area.
You would think.
This is bad
Especially if
plan.
you called them out to your house and they never came back.
Any immortal knows you hang out in the city because there's so many people you won't get noticed.
It was a bad plan. She was just
Yeah.
leaving bodies left and right, just not thinking it. Which you assume
Yep.
at some point she was eating off, people off the reservation, which is how she ended up with Juan,
Yeah. You
and she eventually killed. And
yep.
there's a hint that there was a progression in her hunger that was making her having.
That was brought up too. I mean, she herself was saying it feel that this need for blood felt like it was accelerating.
Mhm. Which is a whole other plot line that you wonder if they stuck with that, if that would have made a lot more sense, but they didn't. So,
Right.
I think that would have added a better tension element than
for
any
sure.
of the feeding on people did.
hmm If
So,
her trying not to, then
mhm.
if they had played with that a little bit more, because they didn't even really explore it much with Juan. She said it, and then like that was it. They
Yeah.
didn't show her trying to not eat Juan. They just showed her, I am hungry. Come here.
Yeah. And
Yeah, she didn't
again,
even make an effort not to do
yeah.
this.
And again, not wise. You don't injure the staff that's taking care of you. Your buffer in between the human world and whatever it is that you are. So,
One would think, but
hmm.
But I mean, all in all, you kind of were just waiting for Susan and Lee to die, and you kind of were sort of hoping for it, especially Lee. Like I was kind of hoping one of them would get it in the mind, because I mean, that level's stupid. She's like, "Keep up with me," and they look away, and I'm like, "You really didn't see her just go to the left? All right, if you didn't, just turn your ass around and go right back out the mine." You know,
Yes, yes, yes.
it's really all you had to do. But no, all right, one of you should have died. That's all I'm saying. In that scene there, but no, they didn't do that. Instead, she comes out and goes, "Found some bloodstone." It was a very weird scene,
Great.
all
that
honestly.
was a very weird scene.
A lot of the movie felt awkward to me.
And I think they were trying to integrate a horror element in there, but it didn't really play,
No.
in my opinion. It was just more like, oh, look, stupid people. Can they just die?
I agree. I agree. You, sir, were. I mean, especially Lee from the beginning. Susan, maybe a little, maybe not quite as much, but you certainly. It's much like a Mark Twain quote. I think was I've not been happy to see anybody die, but I've read obituaries with great pleasure. You know, along those lines.
Here's another. So Susan, starting to be seduced by Diane in the bed, but when she can't find her husband, suddenly gets up, her husband falls out, or she hears a knock. She looks and there her dead husband starts falling out the wall. And so she makes a run for it and she's wearing her bikini. She runs into like the middle desert street, which is luckily the one time the one gas station within 50 miles happens to be out driving, stops for her, lets her in the car. And like if you want to talk about like an interesting parallel moment given current states, after he lets her in the car, he's like, "You're not even gonna thank me for stopping."
I thought about that. I thought about that. I was like, oh, geez. Still?
What the hell was that? I mean, truly.
The people are killing you. Are you gonna thank me for letting you at the door?
I just was, yeah. I was like,
And
wow, this is a very man moment right here.
It is.
fair, he does offer her a coat. I'm assuming he gave her some money because where else would she have had it for her to pay for the bus fare and all this weirdness? But
It's like the magic pocket where people, put in the every time you see a scene in a movie where a woman's like tucking something in, and you're like, where the fuck are you putting it? There's not a pocket there.
Right?
Same. It's the magic boob pocket.
it was very weird. And but
She
it hurt my head. And
she had it in that pocket that's in your bikinis, like the one that is in your underpants. That
the one
pocket.
that like nobody knows why it's there. Now we know it's for emergency funds
It's
when you
for
need bus
emergency
fare.
money when you're living with a vampire,
I
obviously.
Just you always
I,
tuck some cash in there and
I just remember the
might have a
sign up at
distinct odor. I apologize.
the sign up at Nancy's that always says we don't accept boob or sock money.
Money. Hopefully not crotch money either. But anyway,
Ah!
I can
oh,
only imagine it's probably happened to somebody, and I'm so sorry whoever that happened to. Like, I'm so sorry. You probably worked at like a gas station, and I'm sorry.
but okay. So here's some nostalgia. Okay, first of all, I loved that dune buggy. Were you not in love with that dune buggy?
It
That
looked
cute
cute and fun.
And do you all remember the cartoon Speed Buggy that was just like kind of a Scooby Doo ripoff with the talking Speed Buggy? It was a dead ringer for. I was like,
Vaguely. Vaguely. It's just been a long
oh, did you
time.
start winking at me? I was kind of sad when it.
I did read that she had to be taught how to drive a dune buggy though for the film, which I loved. Like they were
Look
like,
at it
we're
though.
just going to teach her to drive a dune buggy because it's
That would
not
be
like driving
fun.
a car.
No, well, especially on the sand and stuff like that. Like it's a whole
Yeah.
different world.
Yeah,
But
it's
she
a
got
different
really
ball.
good at it. Like, cause she
Oh,
looked
yeah.
excellent driving it in the movie. You know what I mean? She looked like she'd been doing it all her life. So good on her.
I do have to share the part that like literally took Seth out of the film. This is hilarious. This is when he was
I
like,
can't wait.
and I'm out. She comes up on the dune buggy, and then they're just in the dune buggy. And they're getting to her house. And once they reach her house, they're like, how did you find us? What were you doing? They didn't ask that before they just got in the dune buggy?
That's usually, I would think that would be the first question that would come up.
How did
Right?
you know we were here?
How did you find us in the middle of the desert? What are you doing? And Seth's like, I feel like they're asking these questions quite late. And I was like, I don't think you're wrong. Let's see what happens. But that was his moment of like, no. All right.
I realized partway through I'd already seen this once before. Um, and that's how memorable the film was.
I had not, but you
Yeah.
know what I loved? Okay, so the intro. First of all, this Celestial now looks stunning in red, by the way. I mean, just
Oh
absolutely
my
stunning.
Yes.
God.
And
It was her
so the intro,
color.
she's in this. completely 70s red suit like outfit that's like almost split all the way up to the crotch. And she still looks phenomenal with this big necklace, this big medallion of like, I'm like, well, that's the vampire because you knew in those movies from the late 60s to the early 70s that anybody wearing something with a big metal, that's the vampire. That's just
That's the vampire, that's the witch, that's the
Witch,
wizard,
yeah,
the
that's the
mage, you
thing.
know, that's the
And then
thing.
whatever it is.
you knew she was on the
Yeah.
hunt right away because you see her walk up and look at the motorcycle, and you're like, oh, she's looking for it. And of course, the biker, because you knew it was going to be a rapist because it had a motorcycle and it's the 70s.
Yep.
The biker
Yep.
comes out, immediately tries to rape her, and she's like, stab, tasty.
That was
But
amusing.
I thought
I
that
also
I
liked
loved
her
the intro.
washing her hands in the fountain. Like,
Fountain,
Hmm.
that made it seem like she planned things out well. She's like, I'm gonna kill him right here. It's in the dark, the fountain, and but she missed the
Oh yeah.
spot when she was in the.
Yeah, she was supremely unbothered by it.
It was very fun. Like that was a very fun part of the movie, in my opinion. I enjoyed that a lot. I thought if they
it
could
was a
keep
good
that
way
theme,
to start it.
Yeah.
But then immediately going into the whole like weird married couple pretending they're strangers at an art gallery, and then the third guy coming in who I'm
Carl, the other
guessing
vampire.
probably I know another vampire, but also seems like he may have hooked up with this couple before. Like,
Yes,
There could because there's familiarity there.
yeah, that the attitude he had was like putting his arm like around Susan and
Susan.
like,
That's why,
hey,
like,
what's
when
up?
when it was the four of them, I'm like, who's gonna propose the partner swap?
Yeah, which might have made for a better film.
Oh my God.
Probably.
Okay.
I know saving it, but I mean,
The film
there was more
is
chemistry there. At least.
Diane takes Lee home, he takes Susan home. Whichever one can seduce the married person first.
Yeah, that would be a fun, vampire couple game. I don't know.
Instead, we
But
got what we got.
yeah,
Again, visually stunning,
very.
but it's almost like it had six plots and none of those plots ever got fixed or came to a satisfactory conclusion.
No, it didn't work.
I did feel like there were plot hooks that they could have followed that would have made
Definitely.
for a better
There was
film.
like three or four really good storylines that were in there if they had stuck with one of them, but they didn't stick with. I don't even know. Like, I wonder if the good ones were accidental.
That would be my
I mean, that's
guess.
the thing. And again, you had three writers on it, two of which were male. Stephanie was the only female writer on it, and I just feel like that the conflict of between what they're trying to make it do and what men think are sexy, and
Yeah.
I think it was a bad casting job with the couple because, like I said, they came off looking and in a lot of ways acting a lot more like siblings than a married couple, and you didn't feel a lot of chemistry between the two of them.
No.
And
They didn't
that's your
even
job
seem
as
to
an
like
actor.
each other. Yeah. They didn't even seem to like people who liked each other.
So yeah,
So,
it was not good there at all. Like, and
no.
you just didn't buy into them as a couple at all.
No. And that's chemistry tests? Were chemistry tests a thing then? Because like it would have taken a simple chemistry test to realize that these two people weren't going to work. Now, he had chemistry with Diane,
Yeah,
but and even like it was trying, but even Diane and Susan didn't really have chemistry.
no,
No.
Like it would have worked better if they had also had chemistry, or if they had chemistry and she and her husband didn't. That would have worked. But there was
yeah,
a lack of chemistry altogether, which made it just like feel like now the wife was on the outside of all of this, which could have worked if they'd have played it up, but they didn't. So she wasn't jealous enough because it didn't seem like she loved her husband enough to be jealous. But she
right.
also wasn't relieved, which could have been the other way that they did it was, oh, good,
Take this
please
off my
take
hand.
him.
Good.
Yeah.
But that wasn't it either. So it led to
Just
what
yeah.
we ended up with, which was this really bizarre situation of moving parts and unsatisfactory sex all around. And
Yeah.
And
With
a
very little
woman,
horror elements and
yeah, with
not,
very little horror,
or
and some
mystic
beautiful
elements. It didn't have
visuals.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot missing from the film.
And then there was weird things where you're like, why even put this in here? Like, so, the whole gas station scene where you have the mechanic who won't pump the gas. Like, I mean, like, first of all, this is something that's going to be lost in time. A lot of people watching this won't even understand why the people didn't just go to why didn't Lee just go and start pumping the gas? And so, for those of you who don't know, around that time, almost all stations were full service, which means you pulled up and an attendant came out and they pumped the gas for you.
And I watched the windshield and,
Yeah, maybe check the
stuff.
oil, it depends on how into their job they were. But generally speaking, you did not pump your own gas. So in reality, this time, there's even a good possibility that Lee and Susan did not know how to pump gas. Okay, just clear. I
Right.
mean,
They'd
I
it's
wouldn't
never done
possible.
it.
I wouldn't have thought
Yeah,
to specify that. But
but
I did giggle at the, oh, just put a couple bucks in.
again,
Like, ah,
something lost in time. That couple
yeah.
bucks could have been 5 gallons, just so you know.
Right.
I remember
Um,
when, if you put in $5, you were mostly filling your tank almost all the way up. You hit
Yeah,
at least half a tank.
and this is the 70s, so you're probably looking at
Yeah.
like cents per gallon as opposed to
oh
dollars per
yeah.
gallon. So
Yeah.
but at
Oh
any
yeah.
rate, so like that's something that's totally be lost of time, which of course they couldn't know that then with their but
Right.
No,
They wouldn't
it
have
no.
made a lot
known.
of sense because you just had this mechanic there working on the car, and other than to keep pointing the fact that Lee was an idiot.
I say, I think it was to show his entitlement because he did seem
Maybe,
entitled.
Yeah.
or maybe it was to show the mechanic as being a jackass. I don't know. I mean,
And
Right. So that
another,
we were okay with him being murdered later, I
who
guess.
knows? Another thought I had was, oh, okay, they're pulling into the gas station. The guy's working on the car. He's a harbinger. He's the one who's going to tell him, don't go this way, go away.
actually, he just wasn't very good at it because when they ask about the house, he kind of cringes. I don't know if you
Yeah, he
noticed
kind
that.
of
Mhm.
It doesn't answer right away, and then he's like, you just keep going straight, and it'll be the only house on them. So, I
yeah,
mean, not a good harbinger, but at least you get that weird hesitation harbinger kind of thing. So, good call, I guess.
that whole scene was a little strange. It really was a little strange because it should have been a harbinger moment. It should have been the oh, we don't go there kind of moment. Um, but it wasn't. And in fact, someone does go there from there to her
Mhm.
house,
Well, and
even though
also,
it's
was that
Yeah.
mechanic a drifter? What the fuck was that? And also, it's not usually an exclusive job. I mean, coming from my background, which was people who own gas stations and service stations, the mechanic often was also the attendant. Be
right.
like,
Yep.
I'm the mechanic, I do not pump gas was not a real thing.
It was strange. And then,
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't even know if he was actually a mechanic or if that was just his car he was working on. Because that was my first thought, was that this guy is just here working on his own car at this gas station, and now you're treating him like he's working here when actually he's just here working on his own car, which would have
Right.
made more sense to me.
Yes.
But that wasn't the plot either because he was really a mechanic. So,
Yeah, it was very
Mm.
confusing. And then the car breakdown was weird. I don't. There was a lot. Okay, so I guess we are gonna beat this to death, so we don't need to. But yeah, basically, the movie did not make sense and isn't interesting enough for you to care. Is a sad thing, but it's really pretty. So I would say it's kind of worth watching if you just want to have something in the background while you're having a drink and conversation, because it's pretty.
yeah. Although
You
I
don't
will
have to
say
pay
that
attention to it.
if you are watching this for a podcast, you need to put your phone not near you because this is, I literally had to like hide my phone so
That
that I
was
would
part of
pay
my
attention to what was
problem.
happening because otherwise I was going to pick up my phone because I was getting there was too much distraction. And Seth kept being like, don't you touch that. I'm like,
Overall, yeah, I didn't think it was terribly confusing. It was just very sparse in what they included.
it,
Um, and what they did include, a mishmash of various details, it felt. and none of it combined for a good, cohesive whole.
Well, I mean, that's true. I mean, it was only confusing in the sense that if you paid attention, there's a lot of stuff that didn't tie in anywhere. So that's how it was confusing. Not because you
Yeah.
didn't understand the plot or anything. You just
Mm,
didn't understand what was the point of having that shit
mm.
in there. It's because there
Right.
really wasn't a plot.
Why tell me this if we're not going to take it anywhere? You're just telling me this to tell me this. Okay, great. Uh, it,
So there's some
some of this
lines and
felt
some
like
people died. She had a husband.
some of this felt like it should have been cut. 100% cut from the film, and it wasn't. Um, so instead, they left in weird little snippets of things that felt like they should have been bigger and maybe were bigger, but then they cut the film and then left in accidental pieces of things that should have been cut because it didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know.
I could see that.
It
exactly.
it was very
Also,
pretty to look at.
yeah. And also, given for a low budget film,
Oh yeah.
I never expected much on the editing in terms of how closely are they paying attention to it. You know, wait, go back, take out this minute right here.
The
You know,
continuity editing. Yeah.
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 I don't
Because to
know.
be
I think
fair, like
maybe
the film editing, the smoothness of the actual visual is fine.
it's
Mm,
beautiful. It's just
There,
there's
there's
weird plot pieces that
yeah.
probably should have been removed that weren't. And
yeah. But like I didn't really see any places where like visually felt you know how sometimes movies just
No,
choppy
no,
cuts.
I was
None of
speaking
that was
more of
there.
the
Yeah. The
when
continuity
you're
editing. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, well, I was thinking of the editing for the story's sake, you know,
yeah,
for okay, let's cut off that
No,
little
yeah. I totally
branch.
understood.
Yeah.
And it's a very valid
Okay.
point. I just want to make it clear that if you're watching it, you were worried about having that weird choppiness. That's not
yeah.
there.
It's not choppy.
Gotcha.
It's just
No.
yeah,
No,
and it's
your point is
free. You
excellent,
can watch
Rebecca,
it
and I
for
completely agree.
Mhm.
free.
Yeah.
So if you have AMC Plus, I watched it on AMC Plus because I have
I
that.
watched
But
it on Shutter,
As a Shutter,
which
but
yeah, which I
yeah.
had to renew my membership for because it had actually
Shutter
lapsed
is
like 2 weeks ago.
for me. Shutter is AMC Plus. When you do AMC Plus, you
Hmm.
get Shutter on
Oh, okay.
Prime. So yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Either one I think I feel is worth the money because you get Dark Winds and that's an excellent show. But anyway,
That's what I've heard.
but this not so excellent. I wish it was better. I understand the
No.
constraints poor Stephanie was working under, but uh,
yeah. It suffered from 70s, I think, a bit.
for sure.
And the thing is, anybody who's a fan of horror films is going to know exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah,
Going for the visual aspect, the story suffers, and
which
odd sexual elements, perhaps, I
yeah,
think.
odd sexual elements. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that's something that Ganjan has definitely has over this. So I mean, just to go back to last month, the sex
Oh,
scenes that Ganjan has, you were all in for.
they felt
There was
passionate. It was
chemistry
good.
Oh,
there.
yeah. Yeah.
This was terrible. No chemistry. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
but continuity wise, like in the sense of like where you knew the timeline, this had that over Ganjan Hess. Like you knew where you were in the movie
Yes.
for this one.
Yes. Yeah,
Ganjan
Ganjan
Hess,
has
you can get
uh,
lost real easy.
yeah, they worked more on the dream aspect, I think, than this one did.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, you had a couple dream sequences in it, but they fit in a chronological sense.
And you
Yes.
knew they were a dream sequence. Like there was
Yes.
no
Yes.
doubt in your mind.
You saw someone wake up and go,
Exactly.
and that,
Yeah, the movie Wake Up.
yay,
So,
thank you.
but
Yeah.
like I said, we've wasted our time on worse, and this again has merit if only in its visuals. And and again, I think it is basically what The Hunger built off of, in my opinion. So maybe if you're
I
bored
could
and you
not
want to like
find,
watch this, then do The Hunger and see if
I could
you know
find
I'm
no proof,
totally.
but it feels like it, at least a little bit.
Watch it. Tell me. You know, email us. Be like, you know, comment. Be like, you're out of your mind, Jenny. You won't be the first person that's told me that. It's okay. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
have nothing more to add. You guys?
No.
Not really. Nice. The film was nice visually. crap on storyline and crap on acting for the most part, except for Diane's character. Yeah, the character Diana. Diana, whatever. See, it's
Yeah.
that.
Diane, I think.
uh,
I think it was Diane,
Actress's
yeah,
name
but
was Celeste Yarnell. That's what I remember.
there we go. We'll
yeah.
go with that. Except for Celeste's acting, the rest of it was pretty unmemorable.
Meh. Yeah.
Yeah. Of our rating, meh.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Meh. But thanks for hanging in with us, and I hope you have a wonderful Women's History Month. Go support some women-owned businesses. Go check out some women-owned creators, and have a great March.
Absolutely. Bye.
You have been listening to the Girls Go Schools podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Girls Go Schools podcast, on Twitter at Girls Ghost Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girls Go Schools podcast, and find our podcast on your favorite podcatcher.